All right, everyone, we start off today in France where we have fairly important news, which is that the protests there for a couple of days, Macron has suspended and then totally gotten rid of the idea of the fuel tax that was imposed before. He backed down. That hasn't stopped the protests. In fact, they appear to still be growing. There was an incident captured the other day, actually, I think 2 days ago now in France. Time differences and shit. Where the French police had rounded up what appeared to be 1 or 200 students, actually, that had been involved in protests, and they were sort of keeping them there kneeling on the ground, hostage style, and it was all very strange. My assumption is that probably they were specifically targeted because they were vandalizing things, but the thing is this. Think of it this way to the people in France. You've got a situation in which your leader is inept with regards to diplomacy, constantly puts his tail between his legs, has pissed off the whole country and insulted all of you. I would think that a few minor acts of vandalism from some high schoolers are not that important. Of course, not encouraging that behavior, but relatively speaking, which is worse? France is governed by a moron that might, a granny grabber that might get 1 million people unemployed, fucking homeless because he fucks the economy, or a few kids threw a rock through a window or something. Ultimately, it's like Dennis the Menace level shit. Then you get like burning cars and smashed out shop windows, and that's unhelpful. The idea of attacking a local business or some private citizen's vehicle or property should never be smiled upon. That's usually the doing of a very small proportion of the protesters, actually. Normally people split off from the main group. We saw this with the Ferguson protests. The great core of people were marching peacefully, basically end police brutality, stop shooting us and stuff. Small groups would break off, however, and use the fact that the police were distracted to go run through the streets, smashing things, burning things, and rioting and looting. Unfortunately, the response then was to take a very large number of heavily militarized police and watch the protesters, while a handful of plainclothes cops who were totally swarmed and outnumbered and outmaneuvered had to go chase around everyone else. It was an inept response. I criticized that years ago at the time. It was very surreal, especially the first night when everyone was fixated on that one line of cars and one of them had been burned, and the fire slowly spread car to car until they were all basically worthless. It must have been $1 million worth of vehicles. I think it was like, what? A couple dozen vehicles must have been completely totally destroyed. I mean, nothing left but a shell. The engine, at that point, probably the engine not capable of running. My worry, I guess, is that in France you'll have the same thing. What you'll end up with is the vast core of protesters are not throwing rocks. They're not rioters, they're protesting corruption, and it's gone beyond the original scope, which was basically related to the fuel tax. Basically Macron, saying, well, fuel prices are high, but we'll have a budget deficit, so I'm just going to tax it even more. To the point at which some people decided, hey, it's no longer, physically, I can no longer make a profit by even commuting to work. Because, see, you got someone who lives, 30 miles outside of the center of Paris, and they have a good job there maybe. They can't get, locally. Locally, they'd have to do, farming or something. Peasant labor, as Macron would probably put it. Those dirty little peasants, those fucking serfs, they should just listen to me, those thugs. I am Jupiter. So they go and they have their mercantile position or whatever. They make twice as much money, but now they're paying $7.50 a gallon for gas. I can't even fathom it. People here are pissed off. I mean, you look at the gas prices here, they're relatively high. For a while, by the way, they were falling. Now they're kind of falling again, but not fast enough. I can remember when it was under $1 a gallon back in the 1990s. I can remember it hovered around 110 was the average. And so at sometimes, if the oil prices fell a little bit, it hit 99 cents. I think the lowest I ever saw it was 96 cents per gallon of gas. Now it's, as expensive as a gallon of milk. Over there, it's more like a gallon of maple syrup. I'm exaggerating. Maple syrup's very expensive. Try running a car off that. Donald Trump will be building one any day now, with Elon Musk's help, probably. The maple power, and it smells really good. I have the tastiest fuel. It's huge. Trust me, bigly. Watching these cops round up a bunch of, basically high school-aged kids, people who are not even yet at college age, literally just, very, very young adults, and treat them like hostages, like they're, hardened criminals or something, is very funny to see, especially when, again, in the internet era, and this has been the case for more than a decade, police brutality and riots and protests and things like that used to be that, you know, you could just see it on TV. Now all of a sudden someone can capture it on a phone, slap it on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, and pretty soon the whole rest of the world can see it. In fact, sometimes they can see it live, which is why these sites are under enormous pressure by governments to prevent that from happening, to prevent people from being able to show shocking acts or stuff that might disturb people, because they don't want reality live. They definitely want it pre-recorded so they can weed through it and they can, you know, hush up things that are bad for their globalistic bottom line. The fact is that I was looking back through, and people have been compiling these because they're fucking hilarious in retrospect. All of the tweets of people that like a year ago, they're like, oh, Macron makes centrism cool. The U.S. needs its own Macron. Yes, we almost got that. It was called Hillary Clinton. Because Hillary Clinton had the same ideology. You are all thugs and little people. Listen to me. You do what I say. I am Lord, basically. That's how he acts. Meanwhile, he's got a wife twice his age and you know, kind of creepy because she was his teacher and he would have been underaged, I think, under French law at the time when they started to smooching, probably. He was like, whoa, yeah, rub your wrinkles all over me, babe. That really gets me going. I know, it's a little bit sick to think of, but yeah, Macron doesn't know what he's doing. If he had known what he was doing, he wouldn't have come out and called half of Paris thugs, number one. He would have been conciliatory. And then, once he had made his decision to be Jupiter and say, no, I'm not going to apologize or back down, then he shouldn't have backed down. Typically, if you look at history, when the leader or whatever backs down, that's when the protests grow more. That's when it turns into a revolution. You look, there's still thousands of people protesting, cars burning every night, and it's not going to stop. It's gone beyond, hey, the fuel tax needs to be repealed. Obviously, people have it in mind there's something else wrong with the country. What is it? It's Macron. His very presence is antagonistic to a lot of people because of the things that he said and the stupidity that he's shown. His approval's 18%, and that's a YouGov poll. They've been right on the money in the last 3 elections. You know, within the U.S., I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't be fairly accurate there. His approval's now below 20%. 4 out of 5 people in France hate his fucking guts. I wonder why. Could it be 4 out of 5 people in France aren't part of the creme de la creme intelligentsia elite that he likes to be part of? Rub elbows with people in their ivory towers and crazy shit. And then they had that one image where he was hanging out with, what, a couple porn stars, I think. Those, I believe, if I remember correctly. And, like, Marine Le Pen actually shared that out. Apparently they were trying to suppress the image. Like that one where Macron looks sweaty and he's got those 2 buff dudes and they're sort of like, you know, shaking hands and stuff, and it's like, I don't know what context that was in, but I think it's rather strange. I think it's strange that anyone thought he would be a good leader in the first place. Hey, I'm centrist, look at me, I'm cool, that doesn't work, that's not a leadership style, that's part of your personality, okay, that's wonderful. Well, you know, I'm assuming that 20% or less of France that still supports you, it's probably some hardline leftists, his family, his extended family, and then there's people that are like, they're totally clueless. Maybe the rich, because they don't have to worry about it. They've got their gated community with their own guards. They're not going to get rocks thrown at their home. Everyone else fucking hates him. That's about all. Peace out.